There are researchers that go into these focus groups, and they are so amazing and so good at getting a room full of people that are like falling asleep to be talking and emotional about a lip balm, for example. If we could do that with lip balm, we should be able to do that with tech products.
No BS news about B2B go-to-market. This is GTM News Desk with me, your host, Mark Kilens, and my co-host for this season.
I'm Natalie Marcotullio. I'm going to talk about what's going on with go-to-market.
What's up, folks? Welcome to another episode, GTM News Desk. Natalie, how are you?
I'm doing well. We're about to get into this, but I'm coming back from, basically I was traveling for almost every week in March for some sort of event or like had a conference or something. So I've been in New York for 2 weeks, so I'm doing great because I'm not in an airplane.
How was the airplane rides? Like, what'd you think? There
were some long lines. The airplane itself, I don't know, I'm always on an airplane, but obviously it was during the craziness of travel right now. I'm pretty bad about getting to an airport early. I will get there 15 to 30 minutes, usually before boarding starts, not before we take off. But I was forcing myself hour and a half, try to get there before, because some of the lines are crazy. And I had a few longer lines, but I was pretty lucky. I knew stories of people in 4-hour long lines. I didn't have anything like that.
Yeah, that would be... you would miss your flight if you're in a 4-hour long line, right? Basically. Who shows up? Yeah.
Or you just get there 5 hours before, which... At that point, I think I'm just not going. If there's a 4-hour line, I don't know.
Oh, I would just go home. Yeah, I would just go home. Yeah, I was no chance. What? Yeah, air travel is so much fun. So where did you go? What is that?
A few different places. We hosted some of our own customer events. We did one in New York. Well, I live in New York, but we hosted one here and in Atlanta. And then 2 different conferences. Went to an Exit 5 conference in Arizona, which was absolutely lovely. And then if you know the company Winter, their message testing, which is very relevant to what we talk about today. They hosted a conference called Spring in Austin. So did get a lot of warm weather, which was very nice. And Arizona was actually in the hundreds.
Wow. That's record-breaking temperatures probably then, right?
Yeah, they were saying for that time of year. But at nighttime, it was really nice. It wasn't as... I think we were all expecting it was going to be miserable. It was absolutely fine.
It's dry heat. It's like a sauna. Yeah, so let's talk about what you learned, because Q1 just wrapped up. If you're listening to this in April of 2026, if not, we just wrapped up Q1. And you and I were just talking about how fast-paced things feel, kind of. The news cycles are kind of crazy, and just the AI stuff is part of that news cycle, obviously. So yeah, what did you hear? Exit 5 was a leadership event, right?
Yeah, so it was mostly CMOs.
Mostly CMOs. Okay, yeah. Tell me about that one first. The CMOs. What's going on in the mind of the CMO right now?
Yeah, I think, and this might have been a little bit of bias because we did workshop roundtables. Of course, a lot of AI talk. And I was in ones that were Nevada, we're not, there were people there who were at $100 million companies. We're not there yet, Nevada. So I was probably with the people more in the startup scale up phase. But I think the first thing was I was surprised by how many CMOs were just so excited by Claude and Claude Code. And my guess and talking to some people was, I think for a lot of times the CMO can really turn to a management position where you don't get to ship that much. You don't actually get to be a builder. So the excitement so many leaders had around getting to be a builder again, getting to get in the weeds, getting to produce things. It felt very much oh, this is so different than my day to day, which is so much managing. And I'm really excited again. And I was almost surprised to see how much the CMO persona in particular was so amped to, people were almost just wanting to whip out their laptop right there and to start Claude coding.
I love it. That's great. Claude is the hype now. Yeah, I think that's obvious. I definitely think there is going to be, we should talk about this with Eric and Anna, our guest coming up. I think there's an expectation with marketers now that you have to be building, testing, trying stuff with AI. I think no matter if you're IC, CMO, there is almost this unwritten expectation, Natalie. That's what I feel.
Oh yeah. And I think actually really interesting conversations that came out of both of the events was a lot of the leaders, again, they might be experimenting with it, but there's a lot of conversation of how do I get my team excited? How do I get my team using it? And I think what I actually really appreciated was that spring, a CMO gave a presentation where he talked about for the past year, he's been trying to get his team to use AI and all the things he did that didn't work. And it was a lot of things that, unfortunately, I heard a lot of horror stories about, of passive aggressive Slack messages of like, oh, look at this person on the X who did this thing, or just straight up shame of like, you guys are behind. Why are you so behind? Look at all these people who are doing it. Or I've seen, and this could be helpful, but I've seen it in like scorecards where it's like, okay, you can only get a 5 out of 5 if you're using it. But it was a lot. What I think we're forgetting is the people who are really excited about AI are probably more doers and tinkerers. Like, it's the people who like to self-learn versus I think the people, at least what I talk to when they maybe are struggling to adopt, is there might be someone who just likes more guidance. Like, people learn and are motivated by different ways. And I feel like because the people who are adopting AI first are generally more of the like tinkerers, they're like, well, why isn't everyone excited to tinker? And shockingly, the companies that did see good AI adoption, it wasn't through individual, like, you have to figure this out on your own. Why aren't you figuring this out? It's a very structured implementation plan of like, we're going to set up all the MCPs and make sure all of the correct data is in Claude. You don't have to figure out, which connectors can you use and what data can you use. It's all set up for you. And also we're going to like have coaching sessions and teach you main use cases. So I feel like I was happy to hear that, like, while there's still a lot of fear and misunderstanding of how do I get my team to implement it, the teams that seem to somewhat do it right, it was like anything else where it's like, oh, it was a structured plan and we gave people guardrails and guidance and didn't just say, why haven't you figured this out yet? Everyone on X has seemed to figured it out.
The approach I take is, definitely not those that you mentioned. I'll give you an example. I recently just built multiple new pricing page mockups using Lovable. I could have used Claude too, but I don't know, for some reason started with Lovable. And that helped get my CEO, our CRO, like all the executive leaders, product folks aligned on different ways we could present our new pricing. And it was interactive because there's a pricing slider. We can make changes super fast. You can like create versions really quickly. Like, it was just so easy. And like, I think, that's one example of like me showing to my team, don't be afraid. Like, this is not like rocket science. You just have to, spend some time critically thinking about how to use it. And if you're not sure how to use it, I will show you how to use it. I just did this for another teammate. I helped her use Claude to literally try to take a whole new, extremely dense competitive analysis that was done against one of our competitors and put that into a template that she built for our internal GTM enablement library so that she doesn't have to do all the copy and pasting. Like, let's just see if we do this, like how good this does. And like showed her how to do that and think about it, how to think about the prompt. I think that is what you need to do as a marketing leader today. And that's how you get your team to do it, personally. Yeah.
Another thing I'd call out that I heard a lot of and that I appreciate in the example of like pricing, for example, or competitive analysis. I think another part of the issue, and we kind of get into this in the conversation with Eric and Anna today, is like we're telling people like, oh, go solve all of your problems, even things maybe you're not the best at, like you don't have experience with, or something that like it's like a flashy workflow that they see on LinkedIn, but it's not something that's actually part of your day-to-day. It's like this expectation of like, oh, well, that could be solved, go solve it with AI. Versus the most successful teams is like, hey, what is a problem you currently have? To your point, it was pricing. It's like, or I've told my team, like, what are the OKRs we are currently really focused on? Any workflows we're building should be most focused on solving those, like that add to that. Because then it doesn't feel like a random side quest. It feels like you're actually getting the stuff done. And the people who I talked to who were the most, I'd say like, I know I shared this update that like, I feel like there was like AI enthusiastic and AI exhausted. The people who were the most AI exhausted were the people who were like, I have 10 other initiatives going on besides learning AI. I was told I was supposed to get 3 other hires. That's not happening now because we're not allowed to hire anymore. And it feels like a net new thing. It feels like a net new initiative thing they have to go learn. It feels like adding to their workload rather than the teams who I think are getting more excited. They're doing a good job saying like, hey, actually, how can this take away from something that you're currently doing that's like really manual, or that you're currently doing that's a really big problem? And again, that you are probably an expert on. And if you are not an expert on this thing, maybe we can get another teammate to help you automate it. Like, I think we also have to understand that not everyone's going to be a amazing automator of AI. They can find use cases they are good about AI, but let's stop shaming them for the ones that they're not.
Spot on. Yeah, the best way to learn something is to pick a use case in this example, like in the context of a business, and like use it for that use case. Just trying to play with AI without like some intentionality, that will make you frustrated for sure.
And again, I think it also just depends on how you like to learn. Like some people love that. Like I've actually found, I think a lot of startups are okay with just saying, hey, team, go tinker, because you probably hired a bunch of tinkerers and they might love just going and like I've heard the advice of too of like go build something for your home life that's interesting. For some people that's great, but I think acknowledging for other people they might need structure. I'm obsessed, I probably talked about this before, but I'm very obsessed with this book called The Four Tendencies, and it's all about how people get motivated. And I feel like in business we put so much blame on the individual of like, oh, they're lazy or like they're not getting this, versus taking a moment to be like, well, how do they like to learn and what motivates them? So that's what I've been thinking about since the conference too much.
I definitely know a good amount about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Do you know the 4 types? Do you know those? I'm curious now. Like, what are the 4
tendencies?
types? Or tendencies, sorry. Yeah, tendencies. Yeah.
Yeah, and I recommend everyone go read it because I'm going to butcher this. But there's like almost like 4 quadrants, and there are things that are opposite from one another. And there is a concept of people who are internally motivated and externally motivated. So first is the upholder, which actually you are both internally and externally motivated. You generally just like follow rules. A good example is like you generally follow rules because it's the thing to do. So you would always follow a stop sign. You should do this. I'm going to give a bad example, but you would always follow a stop sign because it is the right thing to do. You are not just following a stop sign because someone's watching you. That's kind of a upholder, both internal and external. Meanwhile, then there's also the obliger, which they are only really externally motivated. So actually, they maybe would blow through the stop sign if no one is watching them. For a more fun, maybe more safe example of one I really like is they talk about working out. Like if you're someone who really needs an audience to work out, or like a group of people, I shouldn't say an audience, like a group, like you like to go for a group run or you like to go to a class, that might mean that you're an obliger, where like you feel more motivated if others are around you pulling you up. One thing that can be really hard with obligers is they can always prioritize other people's works over their own and get pulled in a lot of different directions. Then there is a questioner, which is the opposite of that, of you will only do it if you're internally motivated. So if again, going back to stop sign, if I don't believe that there should be rules around cars and I should just be able to drive freely, I might blow it. But if I'm someone who has, to my own device, thought like, yes, I believe in the rules of the road, I will follow it. But I don't care if anyone's watching. Like, I don't care what others think. It's all going to be internal. And then there's the very fun one, which I don't know if I've actually met someone who's this, but it's rebel, which is like you're only motivated by doing the opposite of what someone tells you or anything. So like even if you're hungry and someone's like, hey, eat a sandwich, you're like, no, I'm going to do the opposite because you just told me to do something.
Yeah, those are my kids. That's
the example they give. So what I love about the book is they'll go into like how to deal with like a kid who is a rebel, how to deal with like a spouse who's an obliger. And a lot of times for the rebels, they do talk about children.
Oh man, that's classic. That's very interesting. Yeah, I love that. No, thank you for sharing that. Because I mean, that's not just related to AI. That's just like how you think about leadership, basically. Like kind of get to know the tendencies of your folks on your team, and that's going to help you become a better situational leader. Yeah, I mean. But
it's just interesting. Something about AI is we threw all of that out the window. Like, and again, yeah. I did the same thing at first. I was just like, hey team, use it. Tell me what you think. Cool. Like that by no means. I don't know what it was though. Something about this tool in particular, where we're all just like, okay, everyone go off on their own and come back and tell me what you did. It's just been interesting to watch the kind of the psychology and how many stories I heard of people resorting to just like shaming and fear-based tactics.
Yeah, that is not good. That is probably says a little bit about your culture of the company maybe, or just the team.
I think just unfortunately there's a lot of fear and stress at the top right now. Even start with the investors, right? Like they're scared that their companies they invested in are going to be behind. So they bring that fear to the CEO. The CEO brings that fear to their company. Like it definitely does just, I feel in general, people are like a little more less stressed than maybe even a year ago where all this was so new that we're just like, what is going on?
Yeah. But
there still is a lot of just, whenever you're in a period of things changing so fast and unknown, there's going to be stress and uncertainty. But I hope this was a good reminder for myself of like, don't put that stress and uncertainty onto your team. Like you can feel that, but then you have to manage it and still think of system processes. Like don't just keep passing that along.
Well, I know that's what we're going to talk about with Anna and Eric, how to get your mojo, if you will.
Great transition.
You like that segue? So yeah, they have created something that's super in line with what you're saying. It's something that's very intentional. A lot of trial and error, it sounds like. A lot of time spent just tinkering.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the day. And I think that's the best way to do this. Well, again, to each their own. But at some point, you do have to apply what you're learning. You got to try it. So
Yes, and I should specify when I say if you're not
Yeah.
a tinkerer, that doesn't mean I still think going, playing with it, trying things out helps, but maybe giving someone a starting point. I think that's more it. Like too many
Yes.
companies were just like the first thing they did is go figure it out versus being like, here's a very specific use case or exactly what you did. Hey, I'm going to walk you through together how I would approach this. Then you can go off and tinker by yourself. That's fine. But realizing not everyone, the first thing, like some people like guidance or structures or rules to start.
agree. Well, let's go see what Anna and Eric have to say about this. What do you think?
Let's do it.
Okay, giddy up.
Hey everyone, welcome for joining. I am so excited today because we don't just have one amazing guest, but we have two. And this kind of feels like a crossover episode for my life when you all decided to partner together because it's two people I knew separately from two different parts of my job, from networking, both incredible. And then when you told me, hey, we're partnering together on this new project, I could not be more excited. So Eric and Anna, excited to have you on, and mind just explaining who you are separately and what you all do now together.
Yeah. Eric, you want to start?
Ladies first. Come on. I know the rules. Chivalry doesn't die until I
You're
do.
too nice. You're too nice. I'm Anna, and I am a fractional product marketing consultant. I have been working solo since 2020. Before that, I headed up marketing at a couple of startups and worked in other tech companies and also B2C companies. And now I help companies with customer research, customer informed positioning, messaging, go-to-market strategy. So that's me. Eric, go.
My turn. Yeah. I'm Eric Holland. I've been doing product marketing and SaaS for about 4 years. Some names you know, some names you don't know. Started doing some consulting on the side as well for some names you know and some names you don't know. And then in September, I decided to rip the cord and stop working for the man and started my own thing where I'm building messaging GPTs, gems, and now Claude code systems for your messaging. So everyone's using the same thing.
That's right. And so Eric and I started working together. He's built something really cool with Mojo, and it's your custom messaging assistant. We could talk about that if you would like. And it's great. I think it's like hitting on the pain point that a lot of product marketing teams have, which is inconsistent messaging, which I have seen over and over and over again. And so we're burning the boring messaging docs.
Okay, before we get into the fun, maybe more advanced stuff, I do want to talk about Mojo and how you build out these, whether it's gems, GPT, Claude code, why you all decided to go that route. I want to kind of take it from the beginning. And just, Anna, you mentioned how so many teams often have inconsistent messaging, bad messaging. And it's funny because you would think this would be maybe an enterprise problem when orgs are really large, but you work with a lot of startups and still see this issue. So why are messaging docs so bad?
I kind of have been part of the I've seen this issue because I've been part of it and have felt it myself. So working with clients, and even before working with clients, how do you get everybody to use the same messaging? Like, you do all this work, you do all this research, you find all this, these research-driven insights that tell you this is how we should talk, this is how we should talk about how we're different and the specific words we should be using, and it's coming from our customers. And then you kind of write it down, and then everybody goes rogue. And you're like, ugh. And then you have to kind of chase everyone down and then be nice about it and say, no, remember we talked about that word, not that word, and the sales team is going off. So this happened to me during full-time work. This happens with client work. And so what is a good way to get everybody on the same page? There really hasn't been any way up until Mojo, right? Because then you give everybody this tool and they're at least able to start from the same information. And then, of course, if you want to add a little bit of spin or say it a little bit differently, you can and you should, but at least you're coming from the same place, which is structured, a structure that is in place for everybody to follow, which hasn't been the case.
Tell us more about this, because it was something I just built this week. I took Claude, I connected it to our Notion. We have something in our Notion called the GTM Enablement Library, which has all of the messaging, positioning, competitive info, quotes from customers, stats, proofs. I mean, it's an amazing resource that our product marketing champion, she's a champion, Alicia, keeps 100% as up to date as possible. So it's like the most accurate thing. So we just pointed at that, and then we pointed it at the knowledge base, which our knowledge base champion, Grace, keeps up to date. we've tested now for a week. I built this Monday, and it like answers anything you want about anything. And it's like pretty much always accurate, very few hallucinations. So like, what is Mojo in comparison to what I just described? I'm very curious to know.
It's similar. I mean, there's semantics just like anything. I think, the feedback that I've probably been getting the most is people say they feel like I'm in the room with them when they're using it. Like it actually feels like it's coming from me. So I'd say that's probably the difference, is if you like working with me, then you'll probably like working with Mojo. On a more, technical basis, I think what I also find is people will say things like, I had to write my product pages. I got 90% of the way there on the first output and just had to do some cleanup. So I can't attest to what yours is doing, but that's kind of the general gist of why I would push people in that direction to do exactly what you're doing. Is you've got all this information, you've got all this knowledge on how you make decisions as a business. Why not make that easier for people instead of making them do all the homework, as I call it, of like reading something, translating your thoughts and words into their own thoughts and words, and then I think doing the hardest part is then communicating that back to someone else, whether that's being on a one-to-many scale for the folks in marketing or on that one-to-one conversational basis with sales.
It's to argue. I'm not going to promote Mojo for you guys. I'm going to be as someone who's gotten a chance to use it. I think it's sort of like any software where it's like, or I know it's not software, it's AI in this case. But the argument even we're hearing right now of, I could build anything with Claude myself. There's value to someone who's done this across 10 different industries in 10 different ways. Like, yes, you can go build it. And Mark, I build like a similar skill with Claude. It's good. It's been helpful. But if you really want to where's the exact structure? Starting with what is the messaging and positioning table that you should be coming up with? How should you even be thinking about messaging positioning, especially right now if you don't have a product marketer or if you don't have a built out team? Eric, the table that we first put together is still something I use for all of our product launches. Then if you want to say, okay, now I know how to use this asset, what are the best ways to repurpose it? Who should I be giving this to? How do I make sure my sales team actually uses this? It's more of I think the whole argument right now of could I buy versus could I build something? It's also do you want the expertise and the human that comes along with it and the fact they've run this play across 20 companies? Or maybe for some people, they're like, no, I can, my 80% is fine for right now. But I would say as someone who's gotten a chance to go through a little bit of the Mojo process, that's going to be my pitch for you. How'd I do?
No, but it gives
Jeez, that was even better than
I'm still bashful. I don't like talking about Mojo, so I do appreciate it when someone else jumps in there.
This is such a good point, because what I spun up doesn't matter, because what matters is the structure and the actual content and the data it's referencing. And that's where people like Eric and Anna and other people doing any product marketer, that's the value, right? The AI helps you retrieve the knowledge in a fast way, and that can be done in differentiated ways to the points you all just made, for sure. But at the end of the day, it's the content, it's the data, and how it's set up, how well is it compared to your competitor. It's all that stuff that is the taste, the art, the craft of product marketing in this case, that is so important, and you got to get that right or nothing else matters.
Also, I just want to add the pulling of the back end information, however you structured it, Mark, however you structure it, Eric, right? The pulling of the background information is only as good as what you put in it. So if your, messaging canvas has garbage around your use case and the problem you solve and how you're different and, capabilities and benefits and all that stuff, if it's garbage, then you're going to get back garbage. So I think that it's the two things. It's the back end framework you're using to build this custom GPT or custom or whatever Claude code. And it's also what information do you have that you've gotten? Maybe you asked AI to give you that information. Maybe you didn't talk to customers at all. Maybe you only talked to buyers, which are not customers. And then you put that information in and it's not going to, garbage in, garbage out.
And one thing that I would say is most important, and you heard me kind of touch on a little bit, is people think I'm in the room with them. I think most of us at least have learned, okay, you upload contextual information, you upload examples. I know a lot of people like to do that. I have spent over 400 hours of my time walking through how I make decisions. And I'm talking the littlest things. If we just think of a homepage, right? why am I going with my headline here versus this headline here? Like, why am I making that decision leading up to that? What is the decision I'm making after that? And all of those little wires that my brain is doing, you've got to get that information down. It's way more important than the examples you give it. It's way more important than the library of customer calls that are untagged and unstructured that you give it. But if you can really break down how do you make those minute decisions that lead up to those big decisions that lead to a deliverable getting published, then that's when things start really working for you and you realize like, ooh, yeah, I've got like a mini me on my side instead of just this weird robot that I got to keep asking the prompt to do, 5, 10 different times till I get something that I like.
Eric, without like giving away the secret sauce, how do you teach us generally, not necessarily just about messaging, but how do you teach some of these agents or models to make those decisions for you on your behalf? I think this is the next frontier of agents I'm hearing about. Like, yes, maybe I've gotten an agent, to your point, to do something, but I'm still the person deciding along the way if this is good or not a lot.
100%. Like, I first got to the workflow stage of like, okay, here's my workflow. And I mean, all of those minute steps along the way, from how do I understand what this messaging is, all the way to we'll just use a homepage, for example. How do I ship a homepage? And I had like those workflow steps established, which is like, I think the first step to all of this is you have to get every part of that workflow established. So it takes a pause and does that step of the workflow, regardless of how it does it, at least it takes a pause and does that step in the workflow. And then your next step would be that really tedious layer of going into your own brain and saying like, why did I do that? Like, why is this one the right one for me? And it's so detailed. Like, some of this documentation I have on this is, you'd be like, why are you writing this? But that's what I've learned it needs to make decisions, just like a child would. If you just give them a textbook of information, it's going to take them like a long time to probably get all of that. They're going to miss steps along the way. They're not going to really know how to show their work. But if you give them that information of like showing your work, why is 1 + 1 1 and not 4, all of those pieces start to come together a lot better, and it starts to think like you would. And a lot of times, I find things where I'm like, yeah, I would have never wrote that. That's so damn good.
We're not even supposed to talk about that, like the quality of the writing. I know we're not supposed to talk about the quality of the writing, but I actually tested it out to write like my experience from Japan that I just took a trip, and it was good. I was like, I know we're not supposed to talk about the quality of the writing, but I mean, that's something I've been kind of curious about. Like, is it possible? Because a lot of people are saying no, but I'm actually curious, like, how far can we go? How close can we get to like really good quality writing? And I think that once we start to think about it as like, it's both of us together combined, it's like it's fluid, right? It's not just me writing but it's just we're together and we're writing. And can it actually be high quality writing? I know that wasn't the point of the conversation, but I'm really fascinated by this topic.
No, this is something I've been hearing at so many conferences, marketers talking about, because there are some people who are very stark, like, no, it cannot. And then there are some people like, it got really good at coding. It just hasn't gotten the same attention to writing as coding. I do want to take kind of a meta question, step back for three of you. What is really good writing? And Anna, what made you look at this and be like, this is good versus the usual something you'd get out of AI, and why is that bad?
I'm not a writer. I don't write books, but I read a lot. And I think that's step one, is to be like a voracious reader. And I love to read fiction. And I also read a lot of books that like copywriters write. And so when I see good writing, I think I can like notice what is good writing. And when I see AI writing, by the way, it is so obvious, and you probably see it too, because it's like the clear, repetitive, like, it's not that it's this, it's that, right? You just like, oh, why did they post this? So you see a lot of posts on LinkedIn that have that. But when it's good writing, it reminds me of a writer that I was reading, their book, like that fiction book. I've been reading Angela's Ashes. I don't even know if you guys remember this, maybe from like school, but the way that the writer just kind of like writes without stopping. It's just so different, and so it just like pulls you in, right? So that's kind of what I look for, something that's unique and different from the writing that I see on LinkedIn, from the writing that I see, in business books. Can it write that way? And I actually, nobody said anything like, hey, did you write this? Or just the AI tool. They were like, whoa, I love this. Such great writing, right? Those were the comments on LinkedIn when I posted that. So I know that's kind of a long-winded answer, but I think it's a lot about do you read enough books to kind of see what good writing do you read?
That's the
yeah.
core of the.
Do you read? Yeah, because I know that a lot of people are like, I actually haven't been reading at all. I've been using these AI tools, and I just have not been reading for the past 6 months. I can't do that. I love reading so much. And so that's why I think I have a lens on the writing style that AI tools give me. So, yeah. That's my long-winded answer.
+1 to Anna. I mean, I definitely think you need to take information in that is not synthetic in a way, so that you can create your own perspective and you can use your own intuition and critical thinking and connect dots to help you then formulate something that is going to resonate with the goal of the writing you're trying to achieve. You're writing for a goal usually, maybe not, sometimes not, but so I definitely think people need to practice the reading piece and the writing piece to create something that's good. And then you just need people's feedback on it. And AI can give you feedback because it does listening at scale, and it does, insights at scale, and, analysis at scale. But at the same time, you gotta just ask people, what do you think? It's that kind of rule. Once you ask 5 or 7 people, I think at least, you kind of get a signal, right? And you can kind of trust your gut at that point. And sure, maybe, use some data as well. But there's this human element that you can't lose with this stuff. And if you're telling Eric, I'd love to get your answer now. If you're saying I'm taking hundreds of hours and giving it that human element, that's amazing. I mean, that's a special sauce in my opinion.
No, I agree. And to Natalie, your original question, was it last week? I think it was last week. I was standing in Costco. I was going into the dairy section to get milk, and they had Liquid Death giving out samples there, and they're never there. So this was a reason for me to stop anyways, because there was people with, leather outfits and big gauges in their ears and all that stuff. But the reason I stopped was because they had this banner up, and they were selling their new caffeine drink, and it said, caffeine like a coffee, not an electric chair. And I stood there for 3 minutes just reading that. And I'm like, that is so fucking good. Whoever thought of this was brilliant. That is, I know exactly what you're trying to say. I don't even have to get to the can below it to know you're trying to sell me an energy drink. And I don't even drink energy drinks. And I've actually joked that every time I have a sip of one, it feels like I'm drinking battery acid. So that whole electric chair feeling, I immediately was like, I get that. And I think there's this little center here, right below my chest, where my solar plexus is really. And it just either makes me feel down or it makes me feel up. And if I go in either of those directions, that to me is good writing. It's making me feel something. But if it stays right in that middle, then I'm like, that sucks. And so I apply that to, my own writing. I've obviously applied that law of the principle to Mojo. When I critique people and when they ask for feedback on writing, I give that same thing. If you're just keeping my solar plexus kind of right in that middle area, wherever that feeling of emotion sits, then we got to go back to this and add something to it.
That is such a good point. The feel something. I think that's what it is. That's what it all comes back to, the emotional stuff, right? The feeling something. And that's what we get from when we read these fiction books and you stop and you're like, whoa, that is just written so well that you get it, That's what we're trying to do here with I don't think that marketing writing should be different. I really don't.
Yeah, it's almost what you're all saying. I'm trying to put together, if I had to summarize, what is the difference between, yes, AI writing and human writing? And I guess it's feeling, but a lot of times it's nuance analogies and metaphors that only as humans we get. Like Eric, to your point of the electric chair versus and the battery acid, like that's something that you have to be a person and probably have tried an energy drink and be like, this tastes like battery acid, this is bad, to hopefully understand. And I feel like AI is usually, and I'm curious if you all have, I don't know, if you've seen this with Mojo and gotten better with it, at the basics, it's pretty bad at understanding nuance or like, in a way, comedy. Like it either wants something to be really straightforward and it doesn't like anything that's like would make a person think or question or not exactly understand what you're saying. And that's often the best writing. Like the best writing isn't usually so obvious that everyone will get it. To your point, Eric, you want to stand there and read it 3 times and be like, oh, I'm thinking about this a little more. I don't know if that makes sense, but I found nuances where it really struggles, and oftentimes the best writing has a little bit of nuance, or even if you do understand it and have a reaction to it right away, it makes you want to think and think about it more.
100%. And I'm actually testing something. It's outside of Mojo, but I'm going to bring it in once I know how to fit it in, I guess. But when I first started making agents, I was working with a former CTO of mine, and he asked me, like, let's just do simple, like how you'd write a LinkedIn post, and let's see if we can get this to good writing. And the thing that changed it was when we added the one input, and it was like how I feel about things. So for example, if you guys saw my post today about our event, I'm clearly going after Product Marketing Alliance. I have a very strong feeling about them, right? That is inputted into that documentation along with how I get when I'm angry, what things make me angry, what things get me excited, how my family makes me feel. All of these nuanced things about how my brain works has really made my application to when I use this for, LinkedIn post writing is phenomenal because it can pull on that nuance. But you're right, Natalie, like who is doing that? Who is giving them an emotional personality brain as part of their process? Like people skip all of that. And I think it's so important, and I would highly advise it. Again, I don't know how it's going to work once it gets in with Mojo. I just know how it's working with my linear, LinkedIn post agent, but it really is so important on like what you think's funny. Again, back to that tacit knowledge. If you guys have never heard that word, please go spend an hour just researching tacit knowledge. All of that stuff around humor and people say taste, you got to get that logged, you got to get that categorized, you got to get that out of your head and onto a piece of paper, because we don't think about it, right? Like we just think something's funny and then boom, we're off to the next one. But if you were actually think of like, why did I laugh at that? That changes everything about how, your brain works when you go have a conversation with someone and explain why that joke was funny. All of that changes the dynamic and you can explain it the whole way down the chain. But most of us just don't take the time to do it.
I think that's fascinating. I think that's also like the big pushback from writers is like the tool doesn't have your experiences, doesn't have your stories, but what if that's okay? And you kind of like give it some of that, give it little by little, give some of the stories, give some of the thinking around what you think is funny. Like, I think that's really interesting. The other thing I wanted to mention about nuance, which of course I'm going to bring up because I think it's really important, is that nuance, I think, comes from talking to people, talking to customers, talking to buyers. These conversations give you that nuance that helps you differentiate your language, your storytelling, your narrative from other companies, right? Because it's your buyers. And so when you have those conversations, you talk to people that went through a change, a transformation, and you start to get those like creative angles and creative ideas. So I didn't want to not say that because it's so important to this conversation too.
I think I've seen a lot of the conversation around AI move from just like, hey, it's helping me write bad stuff, to now I'm creating systems and processes. But I think we're all recognizing that, like what we said earlier, system processes are only as good as the data you feed it. What are some of the recommended inputs for data? Obviously, you need to be talking to customers. You need to be meeting with them. Is it, I know we mentioned just like raw transcripts. Is it organizing that into, I've seen other people take the raw transcripts, organize their data, or like tag and file it. What you've seen work best for when collecting customer insights or data?
I think that talking to customers is step one. I also think that the tools that people use to pull insights are not good generally. So I think the challenge with labeling something an insight, and I've seen this happen because I've used the tools too, everything seems to be an insight. What the tools typically pick up on are patterns, because it's like, that's the easiest thing. It's the volume, right? How many times something was said. And they're good at pulling quotes that tie back to those patterns. But an insight, and I've started to think about this more, and I'm putting together an article around this, so you'll see that soon, and I'm building something too called AHA PMM, and I'm starting to use that. An insight is not just information, like the volume of information. An insight is something you learn that changes how your entire company goes to market. And so I think that's probably, Eric, why you don't like that word. Because it's like banned. It's a banned word, I think, in Mojo, because every time I'm like, no, I actually want to say that. I want to use the word insight. And it's like, no, we can't. It's banned. So, yeah, I mean, if you really think about, like, what is an insight? People don't. They're like, they just take it as it comes, like, oh, that's an insight, so we're calling everything an insight, right? But an actual true insight is something that'll carry over into how your company goes to market. And so it ties back to decisions, and not every insight, what people are calling insight, should tie back to decisions. So what I've built is something that looks for not just, sure, it looks for patterns, but it's more than that. It's like the things that are surprising, the things that carry emotion, the things that, like, as a researcher, when I do my work, that's the stuff I look for, not just patterns. It's much more complex than that. So you'll see an article around this. Natalie, you'll see AHA PMM later this month. But I think that's really the challenge, is what is an insight, and labeling everything as an insight. And then when you do figure out, like, oh, okay, this is what we should pay attention to, what's the decision we need to make? Like, where do we go from here? And what's the creative angle on learning something like that, right? So people don't know how to make a finding interesting after they learn about an insight. And then with Eric, how do you make that consistent across the company, right? Now we're going to take that into our messaging and make it consistent so that everybody says the same thing. So I think it's like everything's kind of interconnected as we talk about it.
I just have a great example to piggyback off here, and I think you're spot on. So we use data from Gong. So we have a custom thing set up that listens and learns from all of our customer and prospect conversations. We have error ops and profound set up to feed into a custom GPT that our AI search SEO agency set up. And then we have self-reported attribution, software-based attribution, and churn. So we have created a GPT to do a brief for every churn customer above a certain ARR. All of that has been running now for more than a few months. And the big insight is, across all of that, is we need to do a better job of changing our messaging and positioning so it's not just so SMB focused. Because we serve 26 to 5,000 size businesses. That's our sweet spot. I know it's a big ICP, but it's just where we play. We got our footing in this 26 to 200 spot, but we are really well served to do the 200 to say 1,000, even 1,000 to 5,000. So we are literally launching a new homepage next week and a whole new brand identity next week and through Q2 and Q3.
Spoiler alert.
Whoa.
Yeah, because of this insights. And it's all because we designed the listening systems correctly, and like also made sure that like it wasn't just one listening system, it was like multiple that could like validate almost like, is this one really true? Is this one true? Is it's like, again, I wasn't involved in all of that setup. There's a lot smarter people that were involved in setting all that stuff up, but it's really been game changing. And it does provide, to your point, you know, Anna, and I think Eric, you said it, like a lot of information, a lot of like data points, but like what's the big insight at the end of the day? So I had to share that because it was so applicable.
That is very cool that you're building that. One thing I will say is, when I know a lot of companies are doing this, they're pulling their Gong calls, sales conversations, customer conversations. One thing that I've built into the thing I'm building, I know we're like all building, right, is the check on the researcher. Even myself, I was like, okay, tell me, like, am I good at this? Like, do I ask leading questions? Am I changing how, right? Because that's happening in calls, sales calls, customer calls. Like, did we actually get something from the person without leading them into it or assuming something? Or, you know, that stuff matters too. So I built that flag in to say, I don't think that you should really put emphasis on this foundational insight because you had the like 5 conversations and in each one you didn't dig enough. The person didn't dig enough. And I want to know that as a researcher myself, right? And so I think that's like, I'll just say that is important. And I don't think that, well, one, I don't know if people really want to know if they're good or not. I do, but like, I don't know if anybody wants to know, like, was that a good conversation? Did I ask anything? They're just taking it as is, right? So just wanted to call that out.
And then, Natalie, back to your original question about the tools thing, I just want to throw one piece out there. Historically, what I've found is these recording tools are more serviced for the sales side of the organization. Like CROs love them for sure. SVPs of sales love them. Your AEs, get a lot out of them. And historically, they work off more of a keyword search setup. So I would advise anyone who's looking at using these tools to, of course, use them because you've got them. Not saying go, flip over and try to buy a new tool, but I do think there's some need to do more of a semantic analysis with your calls and all of the information that you're getting to actually pull things, insights, if you want to use that word. But we're not just reliant on a bunch of keywords and combinations of keywords even, but it gets to the actual root of things and the message that's being spoken on the calls, as opposed to maybe just like, again, certain words that get flagged up in calls. Whether it's accurate, when you say, I used to work at Clue, so when someone would say crayon on a call, you'd have to double check. Are they talking small talk about their kids drawing, or is this actual competitor that comes up? So there's that piece, of course, but the actual semantics and the meaning behind it, I think getting in there and setting that up. And again, back to our old conversation of how do you make those decisions? What things do you actually want to pull from these calls? That's really, really important. And I think a lot of these tools, they just weren't meant for us to do them, right? Because their market, they're going after other things.
If you think about it, if everybody is using Gong and pulling the calls, what kind of information do you think is being pulled? Is it super unique, interesting, specific, emotional, creative information? Or probably more to the mean of like averages and patterns and keywords and stuff like that. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying that since everybody's doing it and there isn't nuance, right? We're coming back to that word again. Then the insights that you're getting are probably not going to be, amazing.
And I mean, even Anna, to your point of are we leading people on, if the only data you're pulling from is sales data, of course they're leading the prospect on a little bit. Or of course the prospect is saying maybe wants to be nice to the salesperson because it's been a great sales call. I mean, this is something also we're fully guilty of. I don't know many B2B SaaS companies who don't just rely basically on sales data, maybe some churn data and customer calls for their insights. If this was actually being measured from a research capacity, those are probably some of the least, maybe not accurate, but like least biased calls that we could pull from.
I agree. The AI search stuff that you can do now by tracking prompts and like looking at your visibility and then like looking at what the prompt returns from each AI search engine. So ChatGPT, Gemini, AI mode, Perplexity, and they do one more. Like that's raw, like user stuff, right? Like it's unbiased as much as you can, right? Like they're just asking AI questions, and you can kind of understand like, what are they asking and what's coming up as results, but then also where are you in your visibility against those results in your citations, right? I think that data has provided more, I don't know, you use the term insights now, but has created more questions and provided more like ideas for us to explore than a lot of the Gong stuff. When you combined it all together, you get a pretty complete picture. And we definitely like wanted to spend a lot of time looking at this data, like watching it. But I don't think if you just do sales calls, Natalie, like it's to all the points you all just made. Like I think that's a dangerous slope to go, or path to go down, I should say. Yeah, this has been an incredible conversation. It seems like the takeaway for me is product marketing has always been hard.
It's hard. First, you have to define it, at each company. What is even product marketing? What does that mean at each company you work at, right? Because for some, it's one pagers that the sales team needs. And for another one, it's you're actually part of strategic positioning messaging conversations. So what does it even mean? And then you have to figure out how to do with it in a B2B setting, right? If we're talking about B2B. But there's such bad practices that are in place, right? And I only know this because I come from the B2C world and I saw the way it should be done, the way research should be done, the way insights should be pulled, the way you don't lead. There are researchers that go into these focus groups and they are so amazing and so good at getting a room full of people that are falling asleep to be talking and emotional about a lip balm, for example. If we could do that with lip balm, we should be able to do that with tech products.
Yeah, I think that's the takeaway, right? AI can make product marketing and product marketers, their job can be, I want to say easier, because it's still not easier, but it can be almost like superpower thanks to AI, or it could become, AI can help product marketers become lazy and also create generic or just basically crap, right? So it's a fine line almost, depending on how you set this up. And the thing I learned this today, about Mojo, and it's not just the data and the information, it's how you as a human have to train the AI on how to think about all that stuff, which comes from the reading and the listening and the learning and the watching and the doing, right? So it's a whole thing that I don't think is a dialogue in the AI conversations that are happening today enough, basically. Yeah.
I think it's also about being aware of the pitfalls that you can fall into when you're using AI tool, being aware and also really caring about nuance. That is so important, and not going back to the mean of what everybody's doing.
Yeah, I think it's so tempting. And again, I'm everything we've talked about, I'm fully guilty of. So I feel like a lot of B2B SaaS companies are doing this, but it is so tempting to, this is what we're seeing with so many of these AI tools. You can just ship things so fast. So you just want to get as many, agents going as possible. You want to show off all the things that you've built, how many tokens you're using, rather than, Eric, to your point, 400 hours is a lot of time. And that's why it's amazing. But I think we keep forgetting this notion that hard work still requires a lot of time and effort. And to make something great, it's going to require polish and expertise in that area. And I feel like we all want to skip that step. Again, myself so included in so many of these things. I'll build something and be like, hey team, let me know if this is good. Let's go test it. So reminder of also though a good reminder of why when we talk about all software is going to die, maybe not, because usually most software is built off of 400 hours of expertise in some sense. And that's hopefully part of what you're paying for. Maybe not everything, but hopefully realizing that even if you can build it, there's a lot of nuance that you're probably missing.
I mean, you're walking right into a really good point too. And Natalie, I'm gonna ask you a question, right? Because you're still in house. So aren't you expected now to be a builder? Right? So now
everyone is.
Your job isn't just execute on these things. You're being asked to figure things out. And so, yeah, I feel so bad for anyone who's in that situation, because they can't just go spend 400 hours on one Mojo copycat. They need their, Mojo copycat plus their research assistant plus their, XYZ all the way through. I'm seeing a new, skill post every 30 minutes on LinkedIn. So I know people are in that rat race, and I would just encourage you, from someone who's spent so much time on one and can actually make it a viable part of my business. If you've got a quarter, I would just spend it on one thing, one AI project, spend a lot of time getting really, really good at that. And then all of those lessons and mess ups and all of, the learnings you can take into the next one. But if you're just trying to go from one to the other every few weeks, you're going to really miss a lot of that, important stuff that needs to go into it. But I think more importantly is like I have 400 hours of fuck ups, which really help me on any of my other weird AI applications that you'll see me, doing out there that have nothing to do with Mojo. So I just highly recommend just spending a lot of time loving one specific AI project, getting as much out of it as you can till it's like basically perfect, and then everything else after that will be so much easier. But you don't have the time to do everything.
No, but it's a good reminder. Or even just like when people are like, where should I start? It's like, okay, well, what's the project you're already working on right now? And what's a part that's like incredibly manual or annoying, or just like, I think we're getting too focused on the number of outputs versus like, hey, I have this thing I'm currently really trying to solve. Why don't I just like try to solve this, to your point, for a quarter, versus feeling like I have to make 20 different agents.
Yeah, and something that you're really good at. Pick something that you're really, really good at. Like I suck at pricing. I've never ever been given like the responsibility to do my own pricing or do pricing for a company.
Like look at Mojo and how you priced Mojo.
Yeah, anyone who's listening, I threw a dart at a board and we were like, okay, let's start selling this thing, right? So like I would never go and build myself a pricing something, right? Just off the back of Claude and telling it to like do pricing. Like I would go to like Farhan and I would say, hey Farhan, let's use your brain and like you build me this thing. And the same thing goes for you internally. If you're going to build one, pick something that you're really, really good at. And then because then it's just going to be easier for you to download all that information from your head and then apply it to your robot, and you'll see the outputs and you'll feel a lot better, as opposed to trying your CEO's putting pressure on you to do this one project that you suck at, but if you had AI, it would make you faster. That's, I would say, like the worst option for you to go do. Like pick something you're good at, you're comfortable at. That will make you feel a lot more confident about yourself and how you go about AI. That's
why I went with the AHA PMM, right? The finding, organizing, and scoring insights. Because I was like, I am so done with these tools. Like, I'd rather just do this myself, which I did before they came around and did it for you. So I'm like, I'm going to try to figure out a better way, because we need to have a better way.
Great stuff. Yeah, great stuff. And then last question, where can people find Mojo? Like, where's this amazing solution?
MojoPMM.com. You'll find a crazy website. We've got a product page coming. Also, like since I do service plus a product, so I got a service page coming with my product page. But yeah, MojoPMM.com. And then I'm talking about it on my LinkedIn about 2 to 3 times a week if you want to nerd out on messaging.
Amazing. Yeah, I messaging, it's almost like the equivalent of like pipelines, like the lifeblood of a company these days.
We'd have a whole nother podcast to talk about my strong opinions about messaging and the lifeline to pipeline. But yeah, exactly. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. Thank you, Eric. It's fantastic.
Thank you. No, this is great. Thank you so much. I loved it. Like, we dug deep, and that's what I really like about conversations like these. So
thank you guys so much for joining. And like you said, it's so exciting to see you all partnering together. Like, both such experts in what you do. Makes so much sense. Messaging and not insights, but insights would come together. So this is awesome. Glad we could get you both. Thanks, everyone.
It's like the cookie jar. You have to, or like every time you say the word insight, you got to give money.
Call it decision insight. Don't just call it insight. Call it decision insight. That's the new term.
Okay, well, I'm with that. Everyone, go make some decision insights.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of GTM News Desk, presented by TAC and produced in partnership with Share Your Genius. For more newsworthy GTM content, head to tacgtm.com and join our community at thegtmlibrary.com. Until next time,